continuing on with Chapter 3, let's look at floods and flood control. So waterways have always been very attractive places for humans to settle for a variety of reasons, but you can imagine some of them. Transportation. You know, rivers provide good transportation routes. Source of drinking water, source of water for agriculture and industrial uses, recreation. So there are a variety of reasons why people want to live along rivers. Think about the beauty, think about the views that you have. Who wouldn't like to have a water view? So it's a given that people are going to be living along rivers, but it's also a given that there will be floods along rivers. And there are two major types of floods. There are regional floods and there are flash floods. Regional floods are weather related. It can be a result of snow melt with spring rains. Snow melt, heavy snow will fall during the winter months, and then spring comes along. We get some rain. That rain falls on the snow. That warmer rain falls on the snow melts, and we get the runoff combined, not only from the rain, but also from the snow melt. Long-lasting weather systems with continuous rainfall. There was a horrific flood in the Midwest over 20 years ago because of a mid-latitude cyclone that sat over the Midwest, and it cranked out rain for almost a month continuously. Then El Nino events can cause flooding. Here in California, we've had major floods during El Nino years, and also all the rainfall associated with hurricanes. So these are regional floods. These happen a lot, but let's talk about one that happened most recently. This was the 2019 Midwest floods. The New York Times called it the Great Flood of 2019. It happened primarily along the Missouri River and its tributaries, and it lasted from March until December of 2019. It started out with heavy snow. There was one of the wettest winters on record, and then in March, the temperature started warming up and it started raining. So there are those perfect conditions where you had the snow on the ground, the snow started melting, the ground is still frozen, so none of that rain or none of that snow that's melting is going to be able to percolate into the ground. So what happens? Everything begins to run off. So there were, in this flood of such long duration, it impacted Nebraska, Missouri, South Dakota, Iowa. 1 million acres of farmland were flooded, and the property damage was estimated at $2.9 billion. So this couldn't have come at a worse time. It happened in the spring when the farmers should be planting. Then it continued on, so if they did get anything in the ground, or if they had last year's grain stored, that got flooded too. Then later on, if they were able to get anything into the ground, if it dried out enough and they were able to plant, then it continued to flood. So those crops were damaged too. So it seems that this type of flooding is becoming more frequent. It seems that hurricanes are becoming more frequent, but hurricanes actually, statistically, they're not happening more frequently, but the flooding from them, the damage from hurricanes is becoming more severe. And that makes sense because if you are warming up the atmosphere, then that means that more water is going to be evaporated. And remember, water vapor is the power. That's the power for the storms. If you've got more water vapor in a storm, then it just stands to reason that there's more water that's going to come out of that storm. So these are some images from the Great Flood of 2019. Lots of farmland, as well as communities flooded. Such a helpless feeling looking at something like that. Then this was a flood that happened, well, this is not the flood. This was a summer before the flood. This is Nashville, downtown Nashville. This is the the street down here is Broadway, where you've got, you know, Nashville's country music capital of the world. So there are lots of bars along here where country music wannabes will play for tips. A really popular tourist destination. This is the Cumberland River over here, a nice, pleasant summer day. Um, I'm standing on this pedestrian bridge that you can't see, but I'm taking the picture of Nashville from that bridge. On the other side of the river is the Tennessee Titan football stadium. So that's everything when, you know, the Cumberland River is all nice and pleasant. This is what happens at flood stage. Again, this is a regional flood. So people know when these regional floods are coming. They know when the pulse of water is coming. And this is when you'll see people out sandbagging because they're preparing. Sometimes the sandbags work, sometimes they don't because the flood is just too overwhelming. But the Cumberland River has flooded Broadway, and the Tennessee Titan Stadium flooded too. So when we see these pictures of these slowly flowing nice rivers, it's just a hard to fathom just what monsters these things can turn into during these flood events. There's another view of the street. Then there are flash floods. Flash floods are localized events, and they're associated with a rapid rise in water over a very short period of time. They're common in mountainous regions, in desert regions, in urban areas where everything is paved over, so there's no infiltration of the water into the soil. You know, we have concrete, we have asphalt, we have buildings. So where does the water go? Well, it runs off, and it creates this rapid rise, and people are always taken unawares by it. This is the time, you know, this is where we come up with these little sayings like, turn around, don't drown, don't drive through flooded streets, because it only takes a little bit of water to cause your car to float away with you in it. So this is what's happening to these people right here. They've been caught in flash floods. This is a flash flood in Utah. Usually the stream beds are dry. For hikers, these make really good places to hike in. You know, summertime, easy walk in these dried stream beds. But you never know, there might have been a rainstorm a few mountain ranges away, and then you're taken unawares by it because you didn't feel any rain or hear any thunder, and then what you hear is a roar of water coming down one of these dry stream beds, and by then it might be too late. Here's another flash flood in Montana. And this is another one of those turn around, don't drown moments. And this picture shows a portion of the Los Angeles River. It's an artificial river. I mean, the river isn't artificial, but we've got an artificial channel here. Notice how straight that is. So it's a concrete line channel. And when there's one of these flash floods, people are always caught unawares. The water is moving extremely fast because these smooth concrete channels, there's really no friction as it would be in a natural channel with rocks and vegetation. So the river is roaring through. A lot of times you don't see any water in this channel. That's actually showing a little bit in this picture. But this is a famous area for Hollywood to film chase scenes. If you have seen The Terminator, there was a big chase scene in the Los Angeles Aqueduct in that movie, and all sorts of other movies too, not just that one. So this is what it looks like when it's flooded. Quite a difference. A lot of communities that have channelized flows are now trying to get them back to their natural state because they realize that the flood potential is less when the river is in its natural state than when you have it channelized like that. This was a major flash flood in 1976 that killed 145 people. A lot of them enjoying the summer. They were in campgrounds beside these streams. And then a flash flood came up, and these streams turned into monsters, and there was a lot of death and destruction from them. All right, so what do we do to control floods? Well, we're very familiar in our area with levees. We have lots of levees. We have flood control dams like Folsom. We see channelized flows. Those are all well and good, but the best approach are these non-structural approaches where you manage the floodplain so that you don't have people living in the floodplain. You don't have houses or businesses in the floodplain that can be damaged. That takes zoning, that takes planning, that takes development restrictions, and those are things that a lot of communities don't want to do because they don't want to lose those tax dollars that can come in. So that's the best thing, but it's the hardest to do. So here's a levee. This is in the pocket area. All these, this is an old one. All these had to be redone after Katrina. We realized that the levees weren't built to control for 200-year floods. Some of them only had like a 75 or 25-year protection. So lots of rebuilding going on. Here's one being rebuilt. And you see, there's more to it than just this pile of earth along a riverbank. These things are very expensive to build. Then West Sacramento has what are called these setback levees. Setback levees are pretty cool because they allow the stream to wander back and forth as streams are wont to do. This is not West Sacramento. This is somewhere else. I just wanted you to see how these are set back from the channel. Most of the ones that we see are right along the river channel. They're pretty expensive though. The one in West Sac costs $20 million per mile to build, which is kind of odd because there were other places where it was like $2.5 million to $5 million a mile to build. So don't know what happened in West Sacramento that it costs so much. And this is what happens when levees break. So that's why you want to make sure that they are constructed very well. Got lots of area that can flood as a result. There was one several years ago to the south of here that flooded. Luckily, just farm fields, and I'm sure the farmer wasn't happy about that, but it was much better than a lot of structures being damaged. But the integrity of the levee was breached because of a burrowing animal. So it burrowed in, so holes were in the levee, and that allowed water to get in and cavitate, and that just caused more erosion. So the levee broke. Here's Natomas. You can see the levee here. These houses are right next to the water. And then this was in Stockton. These are the levees. These are not setback levees. They are levees that are right along the stream channel. And without that levee protection, these homes could not be built. And here's the Folsom Dam. Part of our flood control system, also produces some electricity, part of the Central Valley Project. And then that brings us to groundwater's geological role. So I will end it here. It's a short little lesson today, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.